Hey, this is Notser, and this is the Tier 6 Premium Commonwealth Cruiser, Perth. She has 27,100 health, a top speed of 32.5 knots, 8 152mm guns, 8 torpedoes, a surface detect of 9.8 kilometers, and 29 AA defense rating. For my modules, reduce crit chance on main armament, improved aiming accuracy, reduce the chance of flood and fire, improved acceleration. For my commander, basic survivability, faster torpedo rearm, and superintendent. We are on the map Trident, it's epicenter, it's the Perth. What is the deal with the Perth? I'm sure you've seen other people talk about it. What's my thoughts? That's what at least I'm figuring. And while we're figuring this, we're going to try and engage this enemy, Mitski. He's brazen enough to move forward, and of course he sends torpedoes which are detected by aircraft. So while we're working on this, what is the Perth? The Perth is basically a premium Leander, the Tier 6 British cruiser. Now, historically, the Perth served for, I believe, the Australian Navy, and she is a famous ship in her own right, especially to Australians, I believe. But the ship itself is not that different from the Leander. Just isn't. Now, it can equip an aircraft. You can select between the fighter and the scout plane, but the AA is garbage. It's worse than the Leander. You can also use AG, which you can't use on any other British cruiser except for the Belfast. But it's not that particularly impressive. It is nice whenever you have a bow on target that refuses to angle. You are going to be able to do a little bit more damage than if you were to use AP. But at the end of the day, it's a Tier 6 British cruiser. And it's not as impressive as the later versions of the cruiser. And it's not as impressive considering there already is a Tier 6 British cruiser in the Leander. So how do you end up playing the ship? Well, you basically play it exactly like the British cruisers. You have to be cautious. You can't take unnecessary damage. We got lucky. It overpinned. The smoke on it is not like anything other than, well, nothing exists like this. The smoke is very weird. It will continuously put out smoke for, I think, like a minute and 30 or 50 seconds. That will only last for 10 seconds. Theoretically, you could choose to be stationary and it would provide the same effect as the British cruisers expect from their smoke. But it's going to have a longer recharge because as it is being used, it is not recharging. That is the mechanics of the game. I think we've all agreed upon them. And that is the issue. In the other British cruisers, you have to basically stay stationary. But it's already recharging. By the time it is depleted, the smoke actually existing in the world in a regular British cruiser, you've only got to wait 50 seconds to use it again if you happen to use the premium consumables, and you should be using it. Otherwise, you're at a huge competitive disadvantage, especially with smoke. It has hydroacoustic. It cannot use the defensive fire trait. I believe I confirmed that, but the AA protection's so poor. It's basically a destroyer. It could be better, and of course we take out the Texas with our torpedo prediction. It has the same single launch, narrow spread selection pattern of all the other British cruisers, and I really appreciate that. Enemy Cleveland is trying to rotate around the island, and I'm setting up AP. You'll get to see this in action. I'm also using my smoke because, you know what, I don't want Santa Claus to fire at me. He's using that camo. We kill him, but he was gonna die. He took torpedoes. Hopefully I'll be able to show off the AP for you in a little bit. No, look at how the smoke works. You sort of want to go at 1/4 impulse because that's going to allow you to not outrun the smoke. You will basically be concealed the entire time, and it's really, really confusing for players because they'll just see this smoke creep along, never actually seeing the ship. It is a very unique play. I don't believe there's ever been a ship quite like this, and you can see how long the smoke charge is actually still working. But if we get a catch, and I wanted to send my torpedoes so bad, but friendly was in the way. Either way, we'll just go after the enemy destroyer. You know, why hold your fire as a Japanese destroyer? Just fire those guns so I can see you. But if I would ever look back, you would notice that the smoke is actually disappearing as quickly as we are letting it out. So you're not going to pull off some crazy smoke walls that completely shield an entire battleship team. It's not quite that cool. It's really only for personal or division. You would have to be in direct communication with each other because it is a very tight little smoke area that you have to make use of. But it is a potential. You could potentially use smoke, move into the capture point, capture the base, and possibly move out of it. Although I doubt that seriously. It's interesting. It's definitely interesting. And we're trying to engage this enemy Koenig. The Koenig is showing his side. I decide to switch to AP since the side is being shown. I also sent my torpedoes, which are conveniently the max range that the Leander can use. 8 kilometers is much better than the 6 kilometers, and the AP does pretty good damage. It feels just as powerful as any other British cruiser, in my opinion. Now, other people could say something different, and you can accept their opinion as, you know, more apparent or more important, but to me, it feels pretty effective. It doesn't feel any less effective than the Leander. So yeah, you have a platform that cannot, and I repeat this, you cannot use this to level up British commanders. As far as the game is concerned, the Commonwealth is a different faction, and oh, you poor baby. You ran into the island, Mr. Koenig. It would be a shame if we were able to do lots of damage to you, and maybe even a friendly torpedo you. Yes. But that's a problem. You can't use your British commanders. You can't use it to train British commanders. How long is it going to be a solo ship faction? I don't know. I have heard that there are plenty of ships that the Commonwealth can make use of, but I hazard to guess that they would prefer to put in a British line over a Commonwealth line for the equivalent. So I doubt, seriously, we're going to see another British cruiser line in the form of the Commonwealth for a while. And honestly, we might see a heavy cruiser line before we see a cruiser line for the Commonwealth. Possibly destroyers, I don't know. It's my understanding that basically these are Lend-Lease sort of situations where the Brits made them and their Commonwealth states, Canada, British India, Australia, New Zealand, all were sort of working together to man and protect the ocean all around the world. So you're not going to see something crazy. You're not going to see Japanese variants in the Commonwealth or German. This is basically just British ships under a different faction. Enemy Koenig is showing a perfect broadside. We'll fire at him. Now he's maybe slightly, and if you notice where we hit, we didn't pin it at all. It's the 152 millimeter, not quite as effective as you would like. You can just sort of get the superstructure, the weaker points of the ship, not too far down on the waterline. The friendlies are able to take them out, and again, we have our smoke. And I honestly wanted to be aggressive to get at the enemy aircraft carrier. And is he going to go to the left of this island just in front of me, or is he going to go to the right? I felt like, if I was the aircraft carrier, I would actively avoid contact with the enemy destroyers that are right in front of me, so I would probably brake to the southern area and run right into B. That's what I was thinking. And you notice, we're going at full speed. The smoke can't keep up with us. We're basically just dragging a smoke area behind us that isn't benefiting anyone, and it's disappearing before it's ever useful to anyone on my team. That is basically what you have. And the longer cooldown is an issue. I do notice it. It is a vulnerable ship. You can't do exactly the same plays that you would want to do like the British cruiser line. You're just a little bit more cautious. You see, 2 minutes and 30 seconds, that is an eternity to wait, versus 50 seconds or a minute for all the other British cruisers if you're using the premium consumable. And we are using all premium, so it's a 1-to-1 comparison. I think it's a fair comparison. So as we work on the New Mexico, we've got AP loaded. He's a little bit too angled. This is where you would want to make use of the HE. And this is really the only reason, if you can't hit the superstructure, of course, this is the only reason I would say this is an advantage over the other British cruisers, other than the Belfast, of course. It's not going to get into a situation where it ricochets a lot of target when their bow or stern on. Because you can switch to HE, you can light the target on fire. That is a effective strategy. Now, I lack Demolition Expert because it's a brand new commander in a brand new faction that I've never had. I might go Demolition Expert, and I would see a little bit more benefit from the level 4 versus the other ones in the current British cruiser line. The New Mexico, he falls to our guns. The friendly Leander probably tried to send his torpedoes, or, you know, whatever, I don't know. Now, the enemy is all the way on the northeastern side of the map. I'm not going to get there. What do I think of the Perth? I think it is a pretty average British cruiser that happens to be a different faction, so you can't use it to train your commanders. I would not touch it. I would prefer to get the Belfast, or the Scharnhorst, or look to the future. Maybe they're going to introduce a new U.S. cruiser for the changes, or a Japanese destroyer for the changes, or a German destroyer at some point. I just think there are better purchases. Now, if you have some love for Australia or British cruisers, then maybe consider it. I don't know how much it's going to cost. It's a tier 6, not that expensive. But as far as gameplay is concerned, it's just a more challenging Leander. Now, in this game, we got 3 kills, 55,000 points of damage done. We did hit some torpedoes. The Mutski did a fabulous job for our team. Great job. Farragut also, I felt like I did a good job in this game, and I was only 5th. But the Perth, it feels it's okay. There are better ships out there at tier 6 for sure. I hope you enjoyed checking out the Perth with me. I think you got to see every scenario that exists. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll catch you next time.